What's up guys, today we're going to be having a look at the Boldr Odyssey Aventurine dive watch. This is my first Boldr that I've ever reviewed. I've seen quite a few reviews for these watches and they had been on my radar for quite some time. However, it wasn't until I saw this Aventurine model that I decided to reach out to the guys at Boldr to see if I could get one in for review purposes, and they have indeed sent this one in, so let's see what we have. First of all, the packaging box is very interesting. It looks like one of those boxes that you'd use to ship something in. It has these rubber top and bottom parts, and it's just a very fitting design for the kind of watch that this Aventurine is. Now, once you actually open the box, you'd see that there's not much to the actual presentation outside of the box itself, because there's pretty much nothing else inside there except some different cards. For example, the warranty card, which I have to say is a cool looking warranty card in plastic, kind of transparent plastic, and then it has some information about the watch, some things to register to the warranty, that kind of stuff. But there's nothing really too special or out of the ordinary for this watch, which, as you know, I very much appreciate companies that go above and beyond to present their watches in the best light possible. I think maybe they could have done a bit more to the insides of this watch box. However, let's get on to the main event, which is obviously the watch itself. Now, the first thing you'll notice, obviously, is this is a bronze dive watch, and it's a really huge bronze dive watch, to be honest. It's selling for around $649 at the time of making this video. It has 500 meter water resistance. It's a 45.5 millimeter diameter case, and it definitely feels like it once you've got it on your wrist. It has a helium escape valve underneath, which personally I would have much rather they'd gone for a different color than stainless steel for the helium escape valve. Now, you have also this dial with that kind of textured finish, that Aventurine color, very nice dark blue, kind of royal blue, the same as the bezel. Very much like the different combinations of colors they've gone for here with those cream indices. I think maybe I would have preferred to see a white markers for the hours. I'm not sure. However, considering the fact that this is a bronze diver, I understand what they've tried to maintain the cohesion of the colors without going overboard, so they've left only white text and fonts on the dial for the logo, for the information on top of the six, and for the calendars. Now, the use of this bezel is very stiff. I mean, very stiff. However, it's extremely certain and extremely reliable. Once you get it into its position, it's 120 clicks. Every click feels very secure, and once it's in its position, there's hardly no playback. So even though it's a very stiff bezel to use, it's quite a good one also. Now, one thing I'm not really a fan of is the cutout for the bezel. It reminds me of kind of Lego pieces, and the case for this watch reminds me of Lego blocks, because it's really chunky, really. I mean, at the end of the day, they do call it on their own website the chunky brute, and it definitely is a chunky brute indeed. There's not much detailing or intricate finishing to the case or to the bezel. You have this screw down crown with two layers of once again these kind of blocks with the logo of Boldr on the top, and you have a pretty much straightforward case. I mean, there's nothing really to talk about. It's a pretty basic looking case. However, I think it does contrast very nicely with the fact that the dial almost looks like a dial from a much more dainty and much more classy and much more sophisticated watch. I'm not sure why, but from certain angles under certain lights, I just get the impression that if you were to forget for 1 second the fact that this is on a 45.5, a monster beast of a watch, you could easily put this on a 40mm dive watch, for example the dial, and it looked perfectly in place. Now, which is, I think, a compliment to the aesthetic choices and the creative design that they've gone for with this watch. Now, What I do have to say is that the case back of this watch is one of the nicest case backs I've ever seen. One of the nicest engravings I've ever seen on a watch. I'll show it to you a bit closer in a minute or two. But it's just a gorgeous case back design that they've gone for. Now you have to keep in mind that, as I said, there's nothing small about this watch. This is a lug size of 22mm, a lug to lug of 52mm, and it has a case thickness of 16mm. So it's 16 millimeters thick, which definitely feels like you're wearing an absolute beast of a watch when you put it on. I maybe would have liked to have a choice of a bracelet for this watch. However, I know that with it being bronze, that would have been a difficult thing to do. But I would love to see how it looked potentially, hypothetically, with a bracelet on it, because I'm not one of those people who thinks that you can't have a leather strap on a dive watch, because at the end of the day, I don't go diving at all, nor do I intend to. So that's not what I use these watches for. But I would just like to see how it looks. On the inside, we have that escape valve wheel and kind of chapter ring, reminiscent of the Rolex Sea Dweller. And if you look at the actual up close finishing of this watch, you'll see what I meant about it looking more dainty than what the rest of the watch is. The finishing is very, very nicely done. Everything's nicely polished. Everything's very precise and accurate. I mean, I was really impressed when I got the macro lens and I actually started to have a look more up close at this watch, because I mean, most of the times you wouldn't expect a watch with this kind of aesthetic and this kind of presence to be finished to such a high standard when you go really up close. So I was quite impressed with what they've managed to pull off there. Also, I really like that on the bezel you have these little circles, these little applied pips, if you could call them, with the 15, with the 30, with the 45. It just breaks it up more. It makes it look more interesting. It makes it look different, and it's not something that I see often on dive watches. Also, you can see that all of these pips are indeed applied, and they kind of protrude a bit to add a bit more interest, a bit more texture to the bezel, which I appreciate. I'm not sure what material the bezel's from. I think it's aluminum, but it does look quite durable, quite good, especially with that matte color. I definitely appreciate the fact that they used a matte color instead of a glossy one. I think a glossy one would have looked terrible here. Now, also, the chapter ring on the inside that says helium escape valve also lets you know it's a triple lock crown, similar once again to Rolex. So you do get that extra safety and security in knowing that obviously this is a 500-meter water resistant watch. The lume is pretty good. I mean, nothing amazing, but it's pretty good. It'll get you through a night with no problem. It has a flat sapphire crystal. I maybe would have preferred to see a bit more anti-reflective coating. I'm not sure. I mean, a flat sapphire crystal. It's a double dome. I'm sorry. I was thinking about one thing while I'm looking at the actual review. Keep in mind, these reviews were originally made in Spanish, and then I dubbed them for my English channel because my main channel is in Spanish. But now, when I was looking at this watch for the first time outdoors, there is a lot of reflection to it. I'm here in my conservatory in this shot, and you can see every detail of the roof. I think the anti-reflective coating, maybe they could have used another one or two. In the crown, you can see it has that a gasket at the end, once again to add an extra level of water resistance. And the usage of the crown, there's no problem to turn it, to actuate it, to be able to change the calendar, the dates at the time. It's a very easy to use crown, especially because of how big it is, but also because of how deep those lines and those kind of blocks are. Now, one of my favorite points of this watch is how it looks in natural light. I think the indoors with kind of that yellow lighting that I had in my conservatory doesn't really do it justice. I think the outdoors with more of a white, more of a natural light, I think it just looks excellent. It's a very, very impressive looking watch. Definitely a watch that gets a lot of stirs and a lot of questions about what is it, where do you get it? And I'm looking forward to what kind of patina it's going to develop over the next few months or year or so. Now, one thing that I have to say is, even though I understand why it has to be this way, because it's a huge watch, but the leather straps are so thick. I mean, it's unbelievable. Honestly, it took me a good 2 minutes to put the watch on the first time. You can see the buckle is also in bronze, and they're the thickest leather straps I've ever had on any watch. Here you can see more in more detail the case back of this watch with that gorgeous design, and there you can see what I was talking about, it being such a interesting design. I mean, it's so creative. I can't really make out all the shapes that there are, but it's one of those things that you'll just look at and stay looking at because of how interesting, how nice it is. Now, as I was saying, with the straps on this watch, I'm not sure what kind of straps would go well with this watch, because at the end of the day it's a huge watch, so any straps that you put on have to be really sturdy, have to be quite chunky, quite thick, the same way the watch itself is. So I understand why the straps that they've put on it by default are indeed the way they are, but as I said, they're just not comfortable to wear at the time being. I've been using this watch for around 2.5 weeks, and they still don't seem to be breaking in that well, so we'll just see as time goes by what if they end up being more comfortable or not. However, I do really like obviously the look of them with that blue leather with the white stitch, and I think it looks very nice, and it once again goes to talk about kind of the accent with the white color, because the dial hardly has any white on it. Most of the things are cream colored on the dial, or kind of that offset yellow or light bronze, however you want to call it. But here you can see me struggling trying to get this strap on, because it is indeed a very difficult thing to do. Once it's on the wrist, even though it's a very big watch, I think that it's quite comfortable, to be honest. I've got 7.25-inch wrists, and I think that I'm probably at the limit of where I can use it and get away with it, because as you can see, the lugs aren't protruding from my wrist. However, it's not uncomfortable at all. I mean, you do obviously know that you're wearing a big watch, there's no way around that at the end of the day, but it is quite a comfortable watch. Keep in mind this does have an automatic movement. Obviously it's a Seiko NH35 S2. So yeah, I mean, in terms of it being the first Boldr I reviewed, well, I'm pretty much impressed by the quality, by the fit and finish of it. And for the price, $649 for a bronze diver, 500-meter water resistant with a helium escape valve with a triple lock crown. I think it's a very good offering. Obviously, maybe I would have preferred had they maybe add an extra $30, $40 and gone up to a Swiss movement, something like a Salita, something like an ETA. I think that would have made it a much more well-rounded package around this price range, just below $700. However, they do offer quite a lot of value for money in terms of the looks, in terms of the build, and in terms of the features that this watch has. So I can't really complain too much about it, and I'm looking forward to be able to review some more pieces by Boldr in the future. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. Till the next time, peace.